There was a Brahman named Drona, son of the sage Bharadwaja, who finished his Vedas and then gave his whole soul to a second scripture, the bow. Study by study, year by year, he made himself one of the great masters of weapons in the world, a scholar whose true library was the arrow's flight. In his student days at the hermitage, Drona's closest companion was Drupada, prince of Panchala. Two boys sharing lessons, meals, and dreams under the same trees. When I am king, Drupad would say grandly, half my kingdom is yours, friend. Boys say such things. The trouble begins when one of them remembers. In time, Drona married Kripa's sister, and a son was born to them, Aswathama. And fatherhood did to Drona what nothing else had ever done. It made him want money. Not for himself. He had lived happily on nothing. But a man who watches his child go without begins to look at the world differently. Word came that Parasurama was giving away all his wealth to Brahmins, and Drona hurried to claim a share. He arrived exactly too late. The treasure was gone, distributed to the last coin, and the old warrior sage stood ready to walk into the forest with nothing left to give. Almost nothing, for Parasurama offered the one treasure no one had carried off. His weapons craft, the deepest in existence. Teach me, said Drona, and the master did. What walked out of that forest was no longer just a fine archer. It was the age's supreme instructor of war, fit to train kings anywhere on earth. Meanwhile, in Panchala, the old king died and Drupad took the throne. And Drona, poor and hopeful, remembered a boy's voice under the hermitage trees. Half my kingdom is yours. He set out for his friend's court, carrying nothing but that memory, and certain, utterly certain, that it would be enough. The king who received him was not the boy who had made the promise. Friend, said Drupad from his throne, tasting the word like something spoiled. What friendship can there be between a crowned king and a wandering beggar? Equals are friends. A pauper and a sovereign are not equals. The court tittered. Drona stood very still. They turned him out of the palace with scorn ringing in his ears. Drona said nothing on the long road out of Panchala. But inside, a vow was being carved, letter by letter. The king who spat on a sacred friendship would be repaid in full, in his own coin, in his own court. Insults make excellent teachers. Drona now had to. He came quietly to Hastinapura and lodged with his brother-in-law Kripacharya, telling no one who he was. A supreme master of arms, sitting unknown in a back room of the very city that housed 105 princes in need of one. Fate does enjoy arranging such things. It only needed a ball and a well. The princes were playing outside the city walls when their ball bounced once, twice, and dropped into a well. And Yudhishthira's ring, slipping as he peered after it, followed it down. The boys crowded the rim and stared. There it all lay, glinting up through clear water, perfectly visible and perfectly out of reach. A dark-skinned Brahman had been watching them, smiling. Princes of the great Bharat line, he said, stepping forward. And none of you can fetch a ball from a well. What are they teaching you of arms these days? Shall I do it? The boys turned, a stranger, thin with travel, laughing at royalty. And somehow they liked him at once. Do it, laughed Yudhishthira, and we'll see you fed royally at Kripacharya's table. So the stranger picked a blade of grass, spoke words of power over it, and cast it. And it flew like an arrow and stuck fast in the ball. Blade after blade followed, each biting into the last, until a slender green chain hung down the well. He drew the ball up on a rope of grass. The ring. The princess clamored, all dignity forgotten. Get the ring. The Brahman borrowed a bow, set an arrow, and sent it into the well. It struck the ring true and rebounded straight back up into his waiting hand, the gold circle riding the shaft. He handed Yudhishthira his ring with a small smile, as if returning something borrowed. The princess bowed to him then, royalty to rakes. "Who are you, master?" they asked. "What can we do for you?" And the stranger gave them a riddle instead of a name. "Go to Bhishma," he said. "Describe me. He will tell you exactly who I am." And he stood in the road, smiling, as they ran for the palace. Bhishma needed no second telling. Grass-blade arrows and a rebounding shot described one man alive. Drona, Parasurama's own pupil. The grandsire went out to receive the ragged stranger with the honors of a king and asked him on the spot to take the 105 princes as his students. The backroom beggar of Panchala had just become the royal preceptor of Hastinapura. Under Drona, the princes were reforged. Bow, blade, make, spear, chariot. The science of war entire poured into them through years of merciless drill. The Kauravas and Pandavas grew from promising boys into weapons of the first order, and their master watched them sharpen, patient as winter, for he had plans for all that steel. When the training was complete, Drona named his teacher's fee, and it was not gold. "Bring me Drupada of Panchala," he said, alive. Karna and Duryodhan went first, hungry for the glory, and came back beaten. Drupada was no small warrior. The master heard the report and turned, without much surprise, to his finest pupil. Arjuna went, and Arjuna did not come back beaten. He broke Drupada's army, defeated the king in battle, and delivered him, bound, with his minister, at his master's feet. The debt of the well, the meal, the years of teaching, paid in full in the only currency Drona had ever wanted, and then revenge. But of a kind Drupada never saw coming. "Fear nothing, great king," Drona said, smiling down at his captive. "You once taught me that only equals can be friends. Very well. Your kingdom is mine by conquest, and I return half of it to you. Now we are equals, two kings, each with half of Panchala. Now at last we can be friends." Every word was silk. Every word drew blood. Drona counted the insult repaid, set Drupada free with honor, and let him go. But hear the epic's warning here. Retaliation does not extinguish hatred, it waters it. And of all wounds, wounded vanity heals slowest. Drupada rode home a king of half a kingdom, and from that day, one passion ruled him utterly: Drona's destruction. What a king cannot win with armies, he asks of the gods. Drupada fasted, performed tapas, and poured his hatred into great sacrifices, praying for a son who would slay Drona and a daughter who would wed Arjuna. The gods, pleased, granted both. Dhrishtadhyumna, who at Kurukshetra would bring the unconquerable master down, and Draupadi, the dark-eyed flame around whom this whole epic is about to turn.